grateful to be walking through this course together, Lord, learning about what it means to be a servant leader like you, Lord. And, I'm grateful for these people, the information you're giving us, Lord, and just how you're helping us as we are in different places around the world, Lord, to lay down our lives to serve and follow you, Lord, by serving others. I just pray for our session today, Lord, that it would be honoring to you and that you would really continue to speak to us and guide us in this process. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. This morning I was listening to T.D. Jakes, and he was talking. The topic was principles of service. And there was an interesting line that he had. He said that God always is looking for workers, and he's looking for one set of workers. And the word he used was servitude. He said the only group of workers he's looking for are servants. And I found that very interesting. Yes, so I tie that in. Okay, today, before I do what I would like to do with you in terms of looking at SMART objectives, are there any questions that you have concerning the major assignment and the other assignments that you need to complete for the course? If you have any questions, just share so that I could respond.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, good. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go into the course and I'm going to pull up, let me see. I'm going to pull up the instructions for the group project, and then I'm going to talk about the, okay, let me share the screen. Actually, I'm already in the course. I should be in the course. Let me see. Let me see. Okay. I should be in it. I'm going to the documents. Oh, sorry. Info. I want to pull up the, I'm just pulling up the course outline. Okay. Okay. Now, when you did the group project, did you pay attention to this part, the SMART objective approach? Did you look at this part?
Yeah, I'm looking at that. That does not look familiar.
Yeah, I don't think we emphasized that much.
Yeah, but it was there. It was there, and I thought, oh my word. So that's why I'm talking about it.
I
Because
think where I didn't go into thinking much about that is because the syllabus talked about a paper we were writing instead of a presentation. I
oh,
thought
oh, so
I thought it was different or something.
okay. Well, the paper and the presentation are related. So then you what I had perceived you're doing, and in fairness to you, perhaps I didn't make it as clear as I should have, but I was using the PowerPoint presentation as the outcome of your group work. Were you aware of that, or are you still writing a paper?
I just thought we were focusing on it as a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I thought.
Yes,
I
you're
also
right,
thought the
because that's
PowerPoint
it.
was in lieu of the group report.
Yes, the PowerPoint. So then looking at the PowerPoint, then I'm looking to see that you've covered everything. So I'm looking to see that you have covered this. Now, are you familiar at all? And I assume too, which is not a very smart thing to do. No pun intended. No pun intended. But I assume that you were familiar with the SMART objective approach. Are you?
No, I'm not.
You aren't, Sigon. The others, Andrew, Brian.
I am a little bit. I mean, I am.
You are. And
Yeah.
what about you, Brian?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in fairness then, I need to just remind those of you who are familiar with it, and for Sigon, for whom it's new, I will just do a presentation on the SMART objective approach, because it's important in terms of looking at, I remember in the presentation you were to look at it as consultants, and that's why I thought you were familiar with it. And that's fine. So that is what I want to cover today in light of the group project, but also you will find it applicable to your major paper. So let's just look at the major paper again and make sure that we cover all the grounds that you need to cover in the major paper. It says, prepare your individual project, write at least 20 pages assessing your journey on becoming a servant leader. So the first part of that paper will be biographical. You will be sharing with us your journey as a servant leader. And I think I would hope that you started thinking about it. I'd like each of you to tell me, where did you think that journey began? At what age did you have your first leadership experience? I'd like each of you to share that with me, and of course, I'll share it with mine with you too. So just jump in, anybody. Remember to unmute yourself before you answer. At what age did you have your first leadership experience?
I think from a young age. I mean, it's hard for me to pinpoint a specific age right now. But
would it be below 10 or after 10?
Yeah, and I think what that is that, like, we always have an opportunity to lead, whether or not we're put in a position to lead. So, you know, I can think back to situations with friends where I got to lead by serving or helping friends who were in just hard situations. You know, so I think from an early age, I started having opportunities to be a leader. Whether or not I dealt with them well always is another question.
Right.
Or you know, another answer perhaps. But yeah, I would say from a young age. And then as I got older and older, I can think of opportunities where I had, you know, where I was able to go and just serve people because I felt led to. You know, hey, can I come to youth group early and help set up chairs? Or hey, can I, you know, help stay extra and tear down? Or, you know, just because I felt like I wanted to, and I got to serve in that way. And so I think that, it started in my youth. And then as I got older, I think that the opportunities became more formal.
Yes.
While
Thank you.
also remaining informal. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Sigan, what about you?
I may not be able to remember much.
Did we
Did
just
we lose him?
lose Sigan? He'll join us back.
Okay, I guess that leaves me.
You go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it was definitely below 10. Kind of coincides with what Andrew just said. I've always been in informal leadership positions, whether it was, leading somebody doing, some kind of practice or swimming, or even more formal, like being the captain on the basketball team or the baseball team, to more formal in the military. So I think for me, it's always been mostly formal than informal.
Okay.
And I think for me, it came with a bit of maturity. Is how do you lead? How do I improve leadership? So now that I'm seasoned, I won't say older. I look back on some things and decisions that were made that I probably could have done better. So I guess now my focus is, how do I improve on leadership?
Yes. Okay, thank you. For me, it was at an early age too, in the school environment. And in fact, it's interesting. It is, I think, only in this course, and I've taught servant leadership for quite a while, that I really reflected at how much in my high school setting, the institution, and I use a strong word, demanded and exemplified servant leadership. I went to an all-girls high school in my home country. And
please bear with me.
Sure, we understand.
Okay, I didn't plug my laptop and then it passed out. I wasn't. Yes,
Okay.
I was saying I may not be able to remember much before I was like 10 or 11, but I can remember in our primary school system in Nigeria, we have a prefect system even at the secondary school. So I think I started the journey there. We have what we call a student or a pupil would be one that will assist the headmaster or the head teacher, to run some errand. That was the position I was given when I was in primary 6. That's like grade 6. So that was the position. So I run errands during break or anytime, the head teacher needs to send somebody around. So that was my position. That's why I think I started the journey in secondary school, university, several other leadership positions, I took from there.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. And what you are saying about your school situation is similar to mine, because we both came up in the British school system. So in schools, in the high schools, you have a prefect system.
Yes.
So and the prefects are appointed by the team of teachers in that area. So I was a prefect in high school.
Okay.
And that carries, in our context, it carried a lot of responsibility in terms of relationship with our peers, the other students, and relationship with our teachers. But out of that responsibility, we honed our leadership skills. And I'm saying that now that I'm reflecting on that, I noticed how much of the example we were given was from what we now recognize as servant leaders, because you were appointed a prefect on the basis of how the teachers perceived you as a student who served. And being a prefect meant, among other things, that you were at the beck and call of the school in terms of service. That is one of the hallmarks of the prefect system. So that is, that in terms of putting an age and a time, that's where I would say mine started. But looking back, of course, it started before that. We would have class leaders. The teacher and the rest of the students would appoint or nominate somebody as a class leader. Your teachers would give you responsibility on the basis of their perception of you being a responsible. And that word responsible was used a lot of times. It was used either in praise or in rebuke. You were supposed to be responsible. You were supposed to be a good example of the school, and the school had certain rules and regulations that you were supposed to follow in and outside of the school. Looking back on it, I think it was a lot of responsibility for children, but we just ran with it as natural. And truly, coming out of our high school, we produced a lot of the national leaders of our country. So it makes sense in terms of, well, not just makes sense. The system benefited not just the high school, but the country socially. So that is the background out of which I came. Now, it's the next part tells us to describe heroes, hard times, high times, heritage, and that speaks to the issue of your family, the role of your family in honing your leadership skill, the hand of God, the times that have shaped you. That is clear. Your natural gifts. Discuss your natural gifts and your natural abilities or limits. Discuss what lack of past experience and areas in your character will be the next challenges for you in growing as a servant leader. So in this paper, you are looking back and looking ahead as you do self-reflection on servant leadership. Discuss, as well as specific plans, and this is where the SMART objectives come in. What are some specific plans that you have for over the next 2 years to grow in these specified areas? And that is where SMART objectives will come in, and we will discuss that. Growth plans can include both the focus areas during your course of study here at BGU, a proactive selection of mentors, counselors, or accountability communities, or initiating projects to gain new experience. So you have a broad swealth of experience from which to choose as you look ahead to your own development as a servant leader. Identify the gaps and challenges you face as you integrate servant leadership principles in your sphere of influence. So this paper asks for a lot. And in going over this, I want to make sure you don't skip out anything. Okay, so that's my reason for just having us go through it point by point. The total paper will be evaluated by how well you understand the servant leadership concepts, how well you have reflected on your journey and character, and how well you have integrated these concepts and the literature, and this is the big area that I don't want you to miss, into your personal growth plan. So the paper does include a personal growth plan. I just want to remind you, okay? Okay, so having walked us through that again, let us look at SMART objectives, how you write them, and then I'm going to have you, I just pull up your PowerPoint and have us together do an exercise on that to hone the skill on that. Okay, so let me take you to, first of all, the handout I sent you, and then I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation of on SMART objectives. Any questions or comments before we move on?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, fair enough. This is what I just sent you. And this is specifically addressed to nonprofits. And it was placed in the context of strategic planning for within a nonprofit. They identified the 4 components here of a strategic plan: the vision, the mission, the strategic priorities, and the objectives. And in your reflection and projection with respect to servant leadership, you might find it helpful if you stopped to identify a personal vision or mission statement. Do you have a personal vision or mission statement? At this time, do you think you are able to identify a personal vision or mission statement that guides your life? Okay. The vision and mission statement fall into the category of that which is philosophical. The vision statement answers the question, if your work is successful, what will the world look like? What will be your contribution to your society, your community? For example, a world free of violence. Your vision may be that you want to see a world free of violence, or you want to be a part of the process that leads to equal access to education for all. So that's a vision. Those are examples of vision statements. Your mission, a concise statement of purpose. Your reason for existing, a broad description of your approach or main strategy for addressing the issue. That is your vision. I could stop there for any comments. Have you, in any other context, thought of or addressed the issue of a personal vision, a personal mission? Or is this completely new territory?
Well, the explanation is coming on well. It's okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you there.
I'm saying that the explanation is coming on well.
Okay.
Yes.
But you're asking if we have a personal mission?
Yes, I'm asking
vision.
if you already did, or if you have a personal vision or a personal mission statement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if mine's personal. Well, it is personal, but we this is something actually that we just as a company did, where we redefined our vision, values, and our mission. But what was nice, it was the owner, myself, and one other leader coming together to do this, and I feel like what we did is collaborated on what is this, who are we, and so to me it really falls in with my personal vision too, which is so what we came up with is to create peace within people, places, and systems. And I feel like that is my mission, because that's why I'm doing the work I'm doing.
Okay. Yeah, and it's always good when your personal vision flows into or matches that of the organization with which you work. then you are able to really pour yourself into the challenges of the work. So that's good. Brian?
I've had some experience with developing either a personal vision or mission statement. It was one of the things that was rather mandated coming out of a deployment. So,
okay.
And it was more geared towards, how you're going to reintegrate with your family, with the community, and with the unit.
Okay.
And it was more along the lines of, towards the difference of environment.
Okay.
The extremes. When you're deployed, unless you don't cook, believe it or not, you're not. But so when you go home now, my wife's looking at me like, "Hey, are you gonna cook?" Or I didn't have to go to the gas station or drive as much. So it's a small thing but it was just a statement, pretty much geared towards that.
Okay.
And it was real specific. I will.
Yes, it
attempt to cook 3 times per week, and
so
I will walk the dog every morning.
Smart objective. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. My own personal vision is to empower the next generation of Christian leaders so that they can become all that God intended them to be in whichever sphere they find themselves serving. And I'm especially committed to and interested in working with young people. And that comes out directly from my own experience of being a young Christian leader and how that has shaped my entire life. So I would like to pour into young people whom God has brought into my sphere, in whatever context, so that they could become their best self in Christ. Okay, so we have a sense of that. Vision, mission, strategic priorities, and objectives. In terms of strategic priorities, these are described as broad statements about the organization's strategic plan. 3 to 5 major areas where the organization needs to focus to meet the mission over the next 3 years. And notice the emphasis on identifying the time frame. And that is one of the characteristics of a SMART objective, that you are very specific in terms of the time frame in which you hope to accomplish this objective. The objective itself is a more specific statement of how you will meet your broad goal statement: who, what, when. So that's it in a nutshell. The SMART objective support the goals and provide more detail. They answer the question, who will do what by when? When developing SMART objectives, we need to remember SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-determined. Specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-determined. Specific, pertaining to a certain task or program. Measurable, it's quantifiable outcomes, and you could identify responsibility. Attainable, doable within the time prescribed and with the existing constraints. That's very important. The worst thing you can do is to identify an objective that either you know or you don't know, but whichever way, an objective that is not attainable. Then what happens? You don't even move towards fulfilling that objective because it's unattainable. So in the first place, you shouldn't even have identified it as an objective. An objective must be attainable. results-oriented, focused on the short-term activities to gain the long-term goals. That is very important. And then, of course, time determined, a time frame for completion is established. And they just give us some examples here from education, from volunteer work. The education department will develop a new half-hour outreach presentation on drunk driving, including a written teacher's guide by August 2017. That is pretty specific. The board fundraising committee will develop a system of tiered giving circles for major donors and create a written brochure describing the giving circles by December 2017. The volunteer coordinator will recruit and train 20 new volunteer mentors by conducting outreach at a minimum of 5 community events and offering 2 mentor trainings in April and September of 2016. So those are just examples of what SMART objectives look like. Any questions, comments? If not, we can move on. And what I'll do now, I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation, but I think this short one page has captured what is in that PowerPoint presentation, which I will put up in the course. But I want to take us to your presentation to work together to show how you take what you have and write it as a SMART objective. So I'm going to come out of this and let me go back to the share. Okay, this is your presentation here. Okay, let me see. Let's see. So we're looking now at the solution to improve. The word is tenants. I know in the tenets, in the course we have misspelled it. It's tenets. That's the word. Okay, so having briefly looked at what a SMART objective should look like, and with the handout you have before you, let's take 1 or 2 of these and rewrite them to reflect this principle of SMART objectives. Okay. Okay, so you identified, oh, I wanted to ask you a question, and I will. So let's go back to, let me see. Okay, take this over here. How did you arrive at, and it's not a negative question, just a question of interest. How did you arrive at these 4 servant leadership tenets that are needed by this organization? How did you arrive at the 4? Persuasion, foresight, conceptualization, and building community.
Yeah, so those are predicated on the issues that we saw within the actual reading.
Okay,
so we identified all of the issues that we saw. For instance, the leadership was disproportionate to the workers in regards to culture and where they're from. We had people leaving the organization. So we just kind of went through that and identified the showstoppers, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to Have you clarified that? Let's see. So the solution to improve the tenets. Okay, let's take this first one, persuasion. Now that we've talked about how to write the SMART objective, because what you're writing here in terms of the solution is an objective. So now we want to write it from the perspective of the SMART objective so that we would be more specific in terms of what the outcome will be. So what you have here is, in terms of persuasion, the leadership should make efforts to engage the employees in productive conversations that allow employees to voice their opinions and thoughts in a non-retaliatory environment. This could also be accomplished by bringing in a third-party facilitator. This could also be done by ensuring there is less of the leadership talking during staff meetings and allowing the employees to freely express their opinions. This way, the leadership act more like a facilitator instead of monopolizing the meetings. Now, what I'm saying to you is take this statement and rewrite it as you would a SMART objective. Okay? So it's going to take us some time doing it together, but I just want us to do at least one of them to give you a sense of how you will rewrite this as a SMART objective. Because remember, for the SMART objective, we want to be specific, we want to be measurable, we want it to be attainable, we want it to be results oriented and time determined. And you have some of that in here already. So I'll give you time to look at it and recommend how you will rewrite it as a SMART objective. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I would say something along the lines that let's say the AR leadership will employ the services of a third-party facilitator and conduct weekly meetings for, 8 weeks to gather employee feedback and recommendations or something of that nature.
Okay. Okay, this is a problem. I hope it does not jump out of me. Okay, anybody wants to add to that? You're honing in on some things there. I have a question for you. Repeat it and I'll tell you what my question is.
So I was thinking the AR leadership will employ the services of a third-party facilitator to conduct employee meetings to allow them to voice their opinions in a non-retaliatory environment. This will be conducted, let's say, I'm just throwing numbers out, weekly for 8 weeks. With feedback provided to the AR leadership.
My question has to do with the time frame. I know you said you're just throwing out that time frame, but why did you choose that time frame as against, which I think is short, as against a longer time frame? That's one question. And my second question is, maybe you said it, but I'm not sure that you identified the outcome that you wanted out of this. And I look at this before me.
So that's the piece I didn't get to. So if the third party facilitator is going to provide feedback to the AR,
the only one responding.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
To hold you hostage here. It's a
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to me.
The others to jump in. Right? Do you understand my questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you state it one more time? I just want to make sure I answer the right one.
As I look at it, going back to what the SMART objective should look like, time frame that was mentioned, but in my estimation, and I may not be right, you want to justify your time frame. 8 weeks sounded like a short time to accomplish this goal. But then even more important, I'm not sure that I'm clear as to what this goal on persuasion is. What is the end product that you would like to see accomplished as a result of this goal?
I think it's that employees can give feedback in a way that is non-retaliatory, that they can participate in conversations and meetings and not have them be overrun with managers just sharing what they want, so that there's more equity in being able to participate and share. I think the idea with a third party is it helps there be a neutral presence to bridge the gap, because when you, I think, swing from an environment where people don't feel free to talk or are worried about retaliation, things like that, it's hard to just say, hey, we're inviting you to talk. So inviting in a neutral third party that can also bring about confidentiality, while individual confidentiality, while also being able to help relay a message, can be helpful. So I think within initial feedback from employees, that doesn't necessarily have to be a super long time, but I think the overall process of getting things to change is much longer.
Okay.
I will also to add that one of the ways that can be measured is to observe the frequency of the times that employees respond during meeting, rather than just keeping quiet. And what's supposed to be a meeting, a dialogue, becomes more or less like briefing. A situation where the staff meeting does not, it's not relegated to just being briefings where staff just get information and go away.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a forum in which they can voice their opinions and express their reservation about whatever program or whatever administrative instructions that are given.
Okay.
That's one of the ways that can be measured.
Yeah, and you do have it there that you want to ensure that there's less of leadership talking and allowing the employees to freely express their opinions. You have that there. Okay. Okay, I was going to play devil's advocate and suggest, I think you are proposing the presence of a third party facilitator, seeing that as a positive. My question to you is it possible that having a third party facilitator may be seen negatively, given the case that we have looked at? I'm just throwing that out for you to respond.
Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility, especially when the third-party facilitator is chosen by the management.
Okay, very good point. So then, in terms of the choice of the third-party facilitator, looking at the topic, persuasion, what is your recommendation?
Well, I think that maybe, well, we were not told, or maybe I can't remember. I don't know whether there is a employees union, or if there is one, they could. I know that unions have, executives outside the organizations that they can ask the staff to seek somebody from the union to outside the organization. Let's say maybe, okay, like us now, that's National Union of Teachers. There are state or local government executives. The organization could ask, okay, can you, get us a suggestion from maybe somebody from the NUT, National Union of Teachers, one of the executives at local government level, to be part of our meetings and mediate or, be in between to make sure that's done. If the choice is seen by the employees as being very neutral, the objective may likely be achieved.
Okay.
If you don't perceive it as being neutral, there may still be resistance and reluctance.
Okay, that's a good observation, but yet the actual case doesn't suggest that this is an organization that has any kind of unionization, and we could assume that because it's a non-profit organization and it's a Christian non-profit. So, but the principle that you are suggesting that the employees participate in the choosing of this third party or slash facilitator is a good one. And I would suggest that it be put into here. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So you begin to see what it's like to rewrite it as a SMART objective. Okay, let's take the second one, foresight. We're saying let's rewrite this as a SMART objective. Okay. So how would you rewrite that? Again, looking at the principles of a SMART objective, how would we rewrite that? Specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, time-determined.
We could say something like an organizational structure that that systematically changes our leader at each level of management on a periodic basis of about 2 to 3 years, making it possible.
Can I just stop you there? Because when it's long, I miss and forget something. You said changes out leaders every 3 years. Is that what you said?
That's what I'm trying to point out.
Okay, you're pondering it. Okay, because my question to you now is from an employee perspective, how do you think that would be perceived?
Well, the idea is one to make the employees look out for opportunities to be in a position of leadership or management.
Okay.
Yes, it's maybe something that they look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, rather than if just a personnel officer, it will not be motivating to remain a personnel officer till I retire. If I know that I could be a personnel manager eventually, or HR manager eventually, I will work hard and want to stay in the organization for longer than just continuously looking out for greener pasture. If I know that the longer I stay, the more the opportunity, the better the opportunity of me rising the ladder, up the ladder. So staff turnover will definitely be reduced if such mechanism is in place.
Okay. My question about that suggestion, however, is this. What happens to the person who holds that position? Okay, you use the example of the HR manager. Now, if when I come into that position as HR manager, I know that in 3 years' time, somebody else is going to get my position, what does it do to how I see my position? You don't have to answer. I'm just throwing that out. You see what I'm saying? So
Yes, I see, because an evolving organization, and especially this one, we definitely, be thinking on their toes. And because an HR manager that is there will be several levels of position in the personnel department. The HR manager could eventually, become a junior vice president, personnel or something. So there are several levels, and it's not just throwing up positions to make people happy. There are functions, attached to them. So the organization must be able to see that, okay, we are in a position where we want to make things better. We also want to make sure that people feel a sense of self-actualization in this organization. So as they are broadening, because definitely the organization will continue to grow if they're on the right track. So it will be regional, will now become a regional HR, manager, things like that will be.
My caution there, though, Sigon, on that recommendation is that we have to look at the specific organization that we're looking at. And what has happened in this organization is that they have contracted in terms of workers. They've gotten smaller because they've had to. Two things have happened. Well, one, they lost their funding. And as a result of losing their funding, they had to cut back on the number of employees. Then their salaries were not competitive, so that the employees themselves moved to other organizations because they were dissatisfied with their salaries. So you have two things that are negatively impacting their number of employees. One, that they had to lay off people, and two, that people are leaving because they're not satisfied with their salary. So you have to factor that in to the recommendation that you're going to make in that area. You see what I'm getting at there?
Yes, I get your point.
Yes, so that is the kind of thinking you have to bring to the table as you, so you're going back to the case, looking at the case. What are the issues here? And how are you going to use those current issues to make a recommendation for improvements? That's the challenge. That's the kind of thinking that you have to bring to the process. Does that make sense?
Yes, it
I
does.
think
Yes,
Brian has to leave us because he takes his lunch break to join us. But I wanted us to just do this together so you could have a sense then of what level of thinking you are required to do to make this work for this case.
Yeah. It seems like within this foresight, I mean, it seems like, I totally see what you're saying, like moving leadership every few years, people won't want to invest in that position.
Yes.
But I'm thinking to Joy at Work and what, Dennis Bakke talks about in there with less levels of leadership, and then obviously decentralizing more so that more people have power in being able to not just do their work, but to actually take ownership over the work that they do. And I think with a reduction in, staff, when you can actually then just say, let's try to maybe there's certain positions we don't need. For instance, human resources, sometimes it's not a matter of needing an HR director. Sometimes it's a matter of the people who are in management positions being empowered to fulfill HR duties.
Okay.
as they manage. So taking some of those, that maybe that answers obviously some of their budgetary issues, but overall, it's also just trying to empower more people in being able to make decisions. So with, Baki talks about people could make decisions. The rule was they just had to go ask someone else for advice, not for what they should do, had to do, but for advice. So you spread leadership and power across more people when you say, we want you to be able to make decisions. This is just the criteria about those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good point, Andrew. So what you do then is in proposing your solution, you give that kind of information that you just gave Andrew. Mm-hmm. You reference Joy at work like you just did, and do that exactly. So you see what is involved in writing this from a smart, objective position.
Okay.
There's a lot of thinking, global thinking that you have to bring to bear, even to something as specific as proposing to help them in the area of foresight. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then you understand now what I would be asking for in terms of how this is rewritten.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So I really wanted to do this exercise with you to get that clarity. And like I said, I'm going to put in to the course the PowerPoint, but I think you understand SMART objective now. But I'll just put that in there to, so that you could look at it as you rewrite it to reflect the SMART objective. So are we clear on that?
Yes.
Well, I thank you for your time, and I don't want to keep you any longer because I know you're all committed, but I hope this would help you in the rewrite. Okay. Have a good week. And if you have any questions or any concern, just send me an email and I will respond to you. Okay?
All right.
And this recording will be put into the course, so you could go back and look at it. And I would let who is the other person?
Bill.
Yes, Bill. Yeah, Bill. I know Bill has been traveling, and I will let him know that it's there for him to look at it and review. Thank you. Have a good week, rest of the week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, just one more thing. For next week, you will be presenting in a PowerPoint format your major paper. Remember that? And I said no more than 15 frames. Between 10 and 15 would be sufficient. And I know that paper is quite a long paper, but long in the sense that it's rich. I don't want to use that word. It's rich in terms of what is the quality of reflection and thinking you're being asked to do. Okay. Have a good evening, afternoon, all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.